As Mr. Trump's tariffs bite down hard on the global economy, analysts in Singapore say more global companies could begin moving their operations to open economies and havens of free trade such as Singapore. Still, local businesses worry that this will mean more pressure from foreign competition for local businesses.
The concern is that it will drive costs up, and at the same time, it will also make businesses in the short run unable to reap at least a normal profits. And many SMEs may have to consider and reconsider their options. And that in the medium term or long term will make our economy less vibrant, less heterogeneous, and less able to take other kinds of shocks.
And at least one analyst believes that certain sectors in Singapore will be more affected than others. In the long run, it could mean layoffs, lower wage growth, and even higher inflation. Now, joining me to tell us more is Dr. Goh Jing Rong, Assistant Professor of Economics Practice at the Singapore Management University. Dr. Goh, welcome to the program. My first question to you would be, which sectors in particular are going to be worst hit from the tariffs, and how will this affect workers?
Thank you for having me, Shahida. So going right into the question, we all know like Singapore, we have a role as a major global trading hub. So this US tariffs on imports from China, Mexico, Canada will definitely have a very big impact on Singapore's economy. Specifically, this tariffs we know is going to affect a wide range of goods. But generally, so long as any of these goods, intermediate goods that are manufactured in Singapore and will subsequently be exported to China for subsequent export to US, these are the goods that will be most impacted by these tariffs. Specifically, right, as we mentioned earlier, we have consumer electronics, right? Singapore is a major exporter of electronic components and semiconductors. Many of these are actually supplied to China for assembly before getting exported to the US, right? At the same time, machinery, equipment, chemicals, petrochemicals, so long as any of these major Singapore exports that we are getting exported to China, which subsequently gets exported to the US, these goods will be most impacted by these tariffs. In terms of the impact on Singaporean workers, it will really depend on two things, right? First, it will depend on the severity of these tariffs. And secondly, it will depend on how long these tariffs are really going to last for. And if it's going to last longer and more severe than expected, it will likely lead to retrenchments, wage freezes, or even reductions for some of these companies. So it will really affect the Singaporeans, like the employment. Yeah.
So, Dr. Goh, starting tomorrow, 25% duties will take effect on Mexican and Canadian goods, 10% blanket tariff on Chinese imports. Will the tariffs on China have a greater impact on Singapore, more so than the tariff increase on Canada and Mexico?
Oh, that's a great question, right? So we all know Canadian, Mexican tariffs, 25%, is much higher than the tariffs on China of 10%. However, we have to remember that for China, it's one of Singapore's largest trading partners. And as we mentioned, many Singaporean companies, we are very tightly integrated into the regional supply chain that actually supplies these goods to China. Therefore, I would say that the impact of tariffs on China will likely have a greater impact on Singapore than the tariff increase on Canada and Mexico. Yeah.
Are there winners in Singapore's economy, Dr. Goh? And if any, where can we see the silver linings here?
Yeah, well, it's hard to have winners in a trade war. So in trade war, generally, from economic theory, everyone loses. However, if we try to find, for me, I'm a firm believer that whenever there are challenges, there are also opportunities that lies within these challenges. For instance, this US tariff, it offers some potential opportunities for the Singapore's economy. First, it could potentially attract like more FDIs, foreign direct investments into Singapore. So for now, we know like Chinese companies, many of them, they have the aim to circumvent like US tariffs. They are increasingly considering relocating their operations to Southeast Asia, and Singapore, with our robust infrastructure, our political stability, and we are very strategically located, it makes us very attractive for these businesses. So if Singapore is able to capitalize on this trend, it can really enhance our position and attract more FDI for Singapore.
As you said, Dr. Goh, it's very hard to find winners in a trade war. As an economist, how concerned are you by this new round of tariffs from President Trump? We saw the trade war with China back in 2018. Has he just started a new trade war that will have a long-term impact on Asian economies?
So am I concerned about this? Yes, definitely. The imposition of this tariffs, it's a escalation in terms of the trade tensions, and it could really signal the beginning of a more protracted trade conflict. I hope not, but it appears that that is the path that we are heading down right now. Just today, we have seen retaliatory messages from the Canadians, Prime Minister, and Mexican's president. So definitely, this will have a more protracted impact on the Asian economies and for Singapore's economy. Specifically for Singapore, some of this impact of this tariff, it will lead to the demand for Singapore's exports to slow down and in turn affect Singapore's economic growth. And if it persists over the longer term, as we mentioned earlier, it will increase unemployment for Singaporeans. At the same time, inflationary pressures brought about by the tariffs may result in higher import cost inflation for Singaporeans. And this is especially so in light of MAS's stance to ease monetary policy as they announced last week. For Asian economies, as we mentioned earlier, supply chain disruptions, financial market volatility, the uncertainty surrounding trade policies can lead to more volatility in the financial markets and really affect investment and capital flows in the region.
So with more pressure on businesses and workers, Dr. Goh, how should Singapore brace itself for this?
Right. So as I mentioned earlier, I think really with challenges and threats comes opportunities if well capitalized. So as mentioned earlier, one is Chinese companies, they are anticipating these tariffs. They are considering relocating their operation to Southeast Asia. So Singapore is a good target for that. Second, Singapore can proactively collaborate with our neighboring countries to create a more cohesive and competitive economic zone that appeals to foreign investors. We can invest more in innovation and technology as well to focus on high value industries and technological advancements, allowing us to really maintain our competitive edge and make our exports indispensable and less susceptible to tariff impacts. Finally, the government can potentially offer some assistance to the sectors that are most impacted by the tariffs, such as financial grants or some retraining programs to better help our SMEs navigate the challenges. By adopting these strategies, I believe that Singapore can not only mitigate the adverse effects of the tariffs, but also emerge as a central player in the evolving global trade landscape.
All right, appreciate your insights. Thank you so much, Dr. Goh. Assistant Professor Goh Jing Rong from SMU there.